I sat quietly at the end of the banquet hall, surrounded by glittering crystal lights and soft artificial music, trying to stay composed while every eye turned toward the main stage. It was Tyler's wedding, the man I once thought would be my husband, and the bride was Madison. I didn't know why I accepted the invitation, maybe curiosity, maybe to prove I was okay, but deep down, I think I just wanted to see him one last time, to know I had truly woken up from that long dream. I didn't cry, I didn't get angry, there was just a cold, aching void inside my chest. As the champagne glasses were raised, Madison beamed and said, like she was telling a joke, "I saved him from a broken woman." Laughter came from a few tables near the stage. Glasses clinked together, but the sound of something breaking inside me was louder than any glass in that room. I didn't understand why she thought it was appropriate to bring me up, the ex, the one who stood by him through his worst days, in her wedding toast. I lowered my head, hands clutching the fabric of my dress, not out of shame, but because the memories were crashing back, tearing open wounds I thought had already healed. 3 years ago, Tyler walked out of the apartment we shared after I lost our baby. He didn't say a word, just left a short note. "I can't live in pain forever." That was it. 6 years of love, of building a home together, ended with a single cold sentence. I didn't just lose him, I lost Haley, Tyler's daughter from a previous relationship who I had raised like my own since she was 4. Her birth mother had long disappeared, and I was the one who brushed her hair in the mornings, taught her to spell, read her bedtime stories. I thought when Tyler left, I would lose her too. But she didn't leave. She chose to stay. I remember the night Haley hugged me tight while I was collapsed on the bathroom floor. She was only up to my shoulder, yet her eyes seemed to understand everything. She brought me a peanut butter sandwich and said as softly as a breeze, "You forgot to eat." I couldn't push her away. I couldn't fall apart forever. If Haley was still here, if she still needed me, then I had to keep going. It took me 2 years to look in the mirror and not see the shadow of the past. I worked any job I could to pay off debt, started studying graphic design again, and finally learned to smile without pain clinging to my chest. When Tyler's wedding invite came, I almost tore it up. But Haley picked it up first, reading the names aloud with an oddly calm voice. She was 17 then, more mature than I realized. "You should go," she said, "not for him, for you." "For what?" I sighed. "To see him happy with some perfect blonde girl?" "No," Haley replied, her eyes locked on mine. "So he sees what he lost." I didn't answer, but I knew she wasn't just talking about Tyler. She was talking about me, the woman I used to be, and who I had become. Now here I am, in the gray mood dress Haley picked out, steadying my breath as the lights hit Tyler's face. He looked the same. Charming smile, confident posture. But I knew what lay behind it. Emptiness, the space I had once tried to fill. I looked at Madison, curled blonde hair proudly standing beside him. She didn't know. Not about the nights Tyler panicked over custody battles. Not about how I sent out his job applications, drove him to interviews. She just showed up at the finish line and got all the glory. I should have walked out after that insult, but something told me this party wasn't over. Not for me. And definitely not for Haley. I was trying to stay invisible in the crowd when someone familiar stepped forward from the catering area. The spotlight caught her slightly messy dark brown hair, steady eyes, and a youthful face carrying a maturity that hit me like a wave. Haley. She wore a white shirt, black apron, and a server's hat. But with every step she took away from the moving line of staff, it felt like the whole room froze. Champagne flutes paused mid-air. Whispers quieted, then stopped entirely, as Haley removed her hat and stood tall in the light. Her voice rang out, calm and chilling. "I'm the groom's daughter," Haley said, "and I have something to say." The entire room fell silent. Even the music stopped, as if the speakers themselves were listening. Madison slowly turned, her lips parted in shock, but no sound came out. Tyler stared at Haley with blank eyes, as if he didn't recognize the child he abandoned. I couldn't move. "I wasn't invited here as family," Haley continued, still holding the crumpled hat. "I'm here because I work, but I can't stay quiet while my mom, the only person who never left me, gets called broken in front of strangers." Murmurs spread across the room. A few guests exchanged uneasy glances. The videographer paused, then slowly pointed the camera at Haley. He left when I was 11, no goodbye, no letters, no calls, no explanation. Haley turned toward Tyler. You didn't just leave her, you left me too. And now, you let someone say she broke you? I saw Madison's shoulders tense. Some people in the front row looked away, embarrassed. An older woman set down her drink, her face shifting from amused to disturbed. Ms. Riley isn't my biological mom, Haley said, her voice filled with pride and pain as she said my name for the first time. But she's the only one who never gave up on me. She taught me to read, to be kind. And when I was hungry, she packed every sandwich I took to school. I wasn't sure how I was still breathing. The room now felt like it only held two people, Haley and Tyler. I used to send you birthday cards. No response. I emailed. Nothing. I once thought maybe you died. Because believing you were alive and just didn't care? That hurt more. Her voice cracked, but her eyes didn't leave Tyler. So today, while people cheer for Madison for healing you, I just want to ask, does anyone here even know you had a family once? The question dropped like a stone. Tyler opened his mouth, then closed it. He had nothing. Everyone was watching him, the man who threw a lavish wedding but couldn't answer the simplest question from a child. Haley turned to me, she stepped forward. I stood instinctively, like my body moved before my mind caught up. Her small hand gripped mine, warm and trembling. She looked at me, then faced the crowd again. I'm not here to ruin a wedding, Haley said. I'm here because my mom doesn't deserve to be insulted by people who know nothing about her past. She's not broken. She picked up the pieces others left behind and built a family out of the ashes. All eyes turned to me. A few guests began nodding. Madison stood frozen, the confidence gone from her face. Tyler still said nothing. Haley squeezed my hand tighter. And today I want everyone to know, she is my mother. The one who truly saved me. And I won't let anyone step on that truth again. There was no applause, no cheers, just a thick, suffocating silence, the kind that falls when truth hits like a jolt to the face. I took a deep breath. My feet had never felt steadier, because for the first time in years I wasn't walking alone. The room remained eerily quiet as Haley let go of my hand and turned back to face Madison. The same woman who just moments ago had smugly called me a broken past. But now there was nothing smug left in her smile, only discomfort. Madison tried to recover, lifting her champagne glass as if to break the tension pressing down on everyone. This is a wedding, she said, her voice sharp and shaky. We don't need to turn it into some kind of hearing. No one's putting anyone on trial, Haley replied, calm but firm. I just want people to know the truth. And the truth is, you built this marriage on lies. The bride froze mid-motion. Haley didn't give her a chance to interrupt. She took another step forward, her eyes gleaming like steel under the chandelier lights. You think you healed him? Haley tilted her head, voice cold and cutting through the air like glass. You don't know about the nights my mom stayed up worrying about rent. You don't know she held 2 jobs just to take care of a child that wasn't hers. You only know half the story. The half he let you hear. And you chose to believe it because it made you feel like the better person. Madison was speechless. All eyes had shifted from the stage to Haley. The child once abandoned, now standing in the middle of a luxury wedding, declaring truth like a battle cry. Haley turned to Tyler. He still hadn't moved. His face was stiff, jaw clenched like a crumbling statue. You didn't say anything. No apology, no explanation. But I don't need it anymore. Haley said softly, her anger melting into something steadier. I carried your silence like a shadow for 6 years. I kept wondering what I did wrong, but now I know I wasn't the one who was wrong. I clenched my hands in my lap, feeling every beat of my heart echo in my chest. And I forgive you, Haley said, not to make you feel better, but so I can finally put it down, so I can grow without dragging that abandonment behind me. Whispers stirred through the room. A few guests nodded. An older woman placed a hand over her heart. A man slowly lowered his camera. The person who saved me wasn't you, and it wasn't the bride standing over there boasting about healing. The one who saved me is the woman beside me, the one you called broken. Haley looked at me, a small smile tugged at her lips. My mom Riley taught me how to get back up when life knocks you down. Not with words but by getting back up herself, again and again. I am who I am today, because she never gave up. I didn't even know when the tears started, but they weren't from sadness, they were something deeper, closer to release, closer to what people call pride. That's when Tyler took a step back. Maybe from the weight of everyone's gaze, maybe because he knew there was nothing left to hide. Haley, he spoke for the first time, his voice small and broken. I didn't think it would ever come to this. You didn't think... That's right, Haley cut in but without anger. You didn't think about me, or about her, and now the truth is doing the talking. Before anyone could say a word, Haley turned to me and held out her hand. Let's go, Mom. I took her hand, we turned and walked out of the hall. No one stopped us, no one said a word, only the soft rustle of a wedding dress across hardwood floors, distant murmurs fading behind us, and the lingering stares of those who had just witnessed something rare. The truth, unscripted, unpolished, powerful enough to silence an entire wedding. We hadn't yet reached the door when the sound of hurried heels broke behind us, like someone slicing through the crowd to catch up. I turned just in time to see Madison appear, her white wedding gown trailing behind her like the collapsing weight of pride. You can't just do this, Madison shouted, breathless and trembling with a mix of anger and panic. You can't just come in, pull this stunt in the middle of my wedding and walk out like nothing happened. Haley slowed, but I gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Not out of fear, but because I needed to stand tall when facing what I had once tried so hard to avoid. I just told the truth, Haley said, eyes steady. If that makes you feel ashamed, that's not my fault. Madison turned to me, her expression now torn between fury and helplessness. You're trying to make me look like a fool. You don't have the right to destroy everything I built. I exhaled slowly, calm now that the storm had passed inside me. I didn't destroy anything, Madison. What you built was never real. You just didn't want anyone to point it out. Madison froze, glancing around the room as if begging someone to speak up for her, but no one did. The guests weren't smiling anymore. Some avoided her eyes, others bowed their heads, like mourning the collapse of a glittering, hollow celebration. That's when Tyler appeared behind her, quiet as a shadow, his tie loosened, eyes unfocused, and for the first time all evening his face showed something real, not charm, not poise, just emptiness. Riley, he said my name like it had been stuck in his throat for years. I didn't know it would get this far. You didn't know? I repeated, a soft, bitter laugh. You didn't know when you walked out the night I lost our baby? You didn't know when you never once checked on Haley? Or when you disappeared and let someone call me broken in front of her? He said nothing. Madison turned to him, more desperate than before. Tyler? She asked. She's lying, right? Say something. But Tyler didn't look at her, he looked at me. I thought I was protecting you, he whispered. I couldn't stand seeing you hurt. I thought, if I disappeared, it'd be easier for you to heal. I looked at him for a long time, then shook my head. You weren't protecting me, you just chose the easier way for yourself. My voice wasn't loud, but I knew everyone heard it. Because the room had gone still again. Just the low hum of the air conditioning, and tension sharp enough to cut through. I stepped closer, not to intimidate but to finish what needed to be finished. I stayed, Tyler, I said. I stayed with the loss, the bills, the child who needed love you refused to give. I was the one who picked up the pieces and built a new life. And you were the one who walked away. Madison took a step back. No one reached for her. The eyes around us had shifted. No longer judgmental, just quietly certain. They now knew who had truly stood strong through it all. Kylie squeezed my hand. You don't have to say anything more, she whispered. It's all been said. I nodded. Madison let out a shaky breath, mumbling something I couldn't make out, maybe not meant for anyone at all. Tyler still stood there, unmoving, not forward, not back, like he finally understood. What he once had already slipped through his fingers. Not today. Long ago. And this time we were the ones walking away. But not in silence. Not in defeat. We stepped out of the banquet hall into the crisp September evening. The glass door closing behind us felt like the final period at the end of a long, painful chapter. No one stopped us, no one called after us. Even Tyler didn't follow. I heard the soft brush of Madison's gown against the floor, then silence. As if she, too, didn't know how to face what had just happened. Haley walked beside me, her steps firm, confident, strikingly assured. She didn't need anyone to validate her, she knew exactly who she was. And that made my eyes sting, not from sadness, but from pride. "Can we go home now?" Haley asked softly, a small smile on her lips. I nodded. "Let's go home." Uncle Mark, my only cousin who had always stood by me, was waiting in the car. When he saw us step out, he simply nodded. No questions. But I saw his eyes. The eyes of someone who'd seen me at rock bottom, now watching me rise. We didn't talk much on the way back. The city buzzed outside, streetlights washing over the windshield like old memories we were finally leaving behind. Inside me was an unfamiliar space, not emptiness, but the vastness of freedom. The weightlessness of finally breathing as my full self. The next morning I woke up to over 40 messages. My phone was flooded with new follower requests. An old friend sent me a link with a note. "That was Haley, wasn't it? She's incredible." I tapped it. A video recorded from a table near the stage captured every moment of Haley standing in the middle of that wedding and saying, "She's not broken. She's the one who carried the shattered pieces others left behind and rebuilt a family from the ashes." The video was titled, "Waitress Calls Out Bride and Groom with a Truth No One Expected." Thousands of shares, the comments were filled with words like brave, honest, made me cry, and even I was a Riley too. I didn't know how to react. Part of me wanted to shut it all down, disappear from the noise, but another part, the one Haley had reached, whispered that I didn't have to hide anymore. I was no longer the woman who was left behind. No longer a name whispered behind backs. No longer the one they called broken. I was the one who stayed. The one who kept going. The one who chose love. Even when it was buried beneath hurt. I looked through the kitchen doorway and saw Haley sitting at the table, laptop open, lips moving as she typed nonstop. I walked over and sat beside her. "What are you working on?" I asked. Haley looked up, her eyes shining in a way I hadn't seen before. "I'm drafting the first episode of my podcast," she said. "A podcast?" "About girls who thought they didn't have a voice," she smiled. "I want to create a space where people can tell their stories. Without edits, without distortion." I didn't say anything, I just reached out and brushed her hair, still soft like the mornings I used to comb it before school. But today, I knew I was touching a soul that had grown. A young woman I didn't give birth to, but poured my life into raising. That night I opened my laptop for the first time in years. And I started writing down what I had lived through. Not as a victim, but as a witness to rebirth. The first line I typed was, "I don't need an invitation into a fairy tale because I'm already writing a real one." And this time I wasn't going to tear out the first pages. 3 months after the wedding, life for Haley and me didn't look the same. But the strange part was, we couldn't even remember what before felt like. Haley became someone new, no longer shy in class or avoiding eye contact in grocery stores. She began recording short voice notes in her room, telling real stories, not fairy tales, about girls like her, like me, like millions of others who'd been told to stay silent. Haley's podcast was called The Second Note, because, in her words, everyone deserves a second melody, a more beautiful one, after the first one breaks. She quietly shared the first episode with a small group of friends online. But within days, hundreds of listeners tuned in. Messages poured in from women, single moms, even teenagers, saying her words touched something they thought no one else could see. I remember one night, Haley held up her phone, eyes misty but smiling wide. "Mom, someone said they cried listening to me talk about you." I didn't respond right away. I just pulled her into a hug and held her close, overwhelmed with gratitude. Grateful not only that she survived, but that she became someone else's light. And me? I chose to stop, standing on the sidelines. I started with one post telling my story from the moment I was abandoned to the day I walked out of that wedding with the world watching. I submitted it to a small blog for single women. I didn't expect much. But 3 days later, the editor called and asked if I'd like to write regularly for a column called Women who rise from the rubble. I said yes. Week after week I wrote. And with every story another door opened, doors I'd never dared knock on before. From the blog I started a support group, and from that group I founded a nonprofit called Her Way Home, a safe haven for women learning how to begin again. We didn't have a fancy office. Just a small house converted from an old garage, tucked behind a neighborhood bookstore. But inside there were always chairs to sit in, a warm pot of tea, and, most importantly, ears that truly listened. Her Way Home wasn't a place to cry. It was a place to rewrite your life story in your own voice. We hosted group therapy, creative writing workshops, and even brought in attorneys to give free legal advice to women navigating divorce or custody battles. One early spring afternoon I was rearranging bookshelves when a woman walked in. She wore a light sweater, still had her wedding ring on, and her eyes held the same lost look I once saw in the mirror the day Tyler left. "I read your piece about the wedding," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't think anyone out there could possibly understand me, until I read that." I didn't ask any questions. I just pointed to the chair by the window where sunlight always touched in the late afternoons. "Have a seat," I said, "we can start from here." And that's the most powerful thing. Sitting with a stranger, opening old chapters together and helping each other write the next ones, with words no one ever taught us. Forgive. Strengthen. Continue. Today, Haley and I live in a small apartment, its walls covered in artwork gifted by women who joined our creative classes. We're not wealthy, we're not famous, but I've never felt more whole. I once believed happiness came from being invited into someone else's fairy tale. But I've learned that happiness doesn't come from invitations. It comes from picking up the pen and daring to write. And if you're feeling lost, exhausted, unsure of where to begin, remember, you don't need anyone's permission to be happy. Because if you're living honestly, loving fully, and trying every day to heal, you've already written the most beautiful story. The story of Haley and me isn't just about surviving pain. It's proof that from brokenness we can build something deeply meaningful. When no one believes in you, be the first to believe in yourself. Being left behind doesn't mean you're worthless. Sometimes it's the beginning of discovering your true strength. And when you find your voice, you don't just heal yourself. You light the way for others still searching for the courage to speak. What do you think about Riley and Haley's journey? Have you ever witnessed a woman this strong in real life? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, inspiring family stories.